have you done?
Oh my god! Security! Security!
Hello everybody, I'm Ben from What Culture.
I'm Peter from What Culture.
And it's time to talk about Prey,
Or Prey 2.
as Simon Miller would say. Now, it's been a little while since we did our first impressions. We've had a bit of a hectic month here, but Peter has played the ever-loving crap out of Prey.
Yeah.
Prey.
That's the thing, I've had a lot of time to pray it. Or Prey 2.
He's eat, pray, loved. And that's just been your day every day, isn't it?
Every Prey, yeah.
Every Prey. But we are here now finally to do the review, the full review, a full discussion. You've played the crap out of it. We're going to talk about the review score right now. What did you give it?
I gave it 3.5 stars.
3.5 stars. There we go. So we're going to break down very shortly just what that means about Prey.
Can we pause while we do the stars animation?
You want? What do you want to? Well, the star animation's already come up. It came up when you said 3.5 stars. You want me to do it
Are you
again?
just going to do a freeze frame?
No, we'll just talk underneath it.
Oh, okay.
You've edited these before.
I know, but I normally try and have a bit of dead air.
They're okay. They understand.
Okay, well that was embarrassing.
We okay?
Let's just carry
You
on
okay?
with it, yeah.
Right. Well, let's move on to the first section. Let's talk about the narrative.
Okay, well, Prey,
Or Prey 2.
I'm not doing any more of
I
that.
will.
Okay. Is set
Or I won't.
in an ultimate
In the ultimate universe!
in the ultimate timeline where Kennedy survived his assassination.
Oh no!
Soviet and US forces get together, and there's a satellite in space.
Yes.
And it's privatized into what becomes Talos 1, the satellite I'm sure you've already seen on the promotional material. It's a research station
Yes.
for neuromods. Which are things where you hold a thing up to your eye and it stabs you in the eye with an actual needle.
Not a plasmid.
No, not a plasmid.
plasmid.
It's a plasmid.
Right.
It's an eye plasmid.
It's a needle plasmid.
Yes.
Although you did inject those as well, I suppose.
But I don't want to go into too much information, too much detail, because it would be spoilery.
Yes.
Essentially, the satellite is for neuromod research, and you are a worker on the station. I'm tiptoeing around here because there's a lot.
Morgan or Lady Morgan?
Morgan or Lady Morgan, depending on whichever. They're both called Morgan. The problem is that there's a bombshell very early on, and that's
There
why I'm
is.
kind of like, I'm not sure how much to say.
That's fine. You can just say you're on the station.
Yeah.
The game takes place on the station.
You're on the station, and your brother is also on the station, and he is getting in your way of a certain objective that you want to do, and that's all I'm really going to say. And of course, there are aliens on the station.
Oh my god.
The nature of these aliens becomes apparent later on, and that's something you're going to have to play the game to find out. But
Does it remain gripping throughout?
no.
It seemed to have a very interesting premise, at least.
Yes, the premise is interesting. It's unique. There's some interesting stuff going on that you've not really seen before in like-minded games.
Yeah.
I would say the premise itself is fairly interesting throughout. The problem is something that we're going to talk about in presentation, and that's where I have an issue with it keeping me enticed and entertained.
Okay.
But I will say there are multiple endings to this game,
Yep.
and it's a sort of morality choice-based system in which when you get to the end, there are a number of NPCs who will sort of go through various actions that you've carried out.
Okay.
And so they will say different things
Telltale
depending
game.
on... Yeah, they'll be like, oh, remember that time you kicked Ben in the face because he's a
Oh.
piece of...
I don't remember that. How could you?
Or if you didn't do that, they'll say, remember that time that you got married to Ben Potter. So I always like that in a video game anywhere. It sort of goes over what you've done. I just like that kind of memory lane aspect to it. So
Yeah.
that was good.
That's nice.
But I will say that the ending, whichever way it goes, is very ambiguous to an almost unsatisfying degree.
Oh my god. Does that mean we're going to get Prey 2?
Or would it be Prey 3?
Or Prey 3?
Oh
if
my
you
God.
want to get serious
We'll
about
have to contact Simon Miller and
Yeah,
find
Simon
out.
Miller will tell us.
Yeah.
Prey 2 or Prey
Prey
3 if
3.
you want to get serious about this.
Right. That's all I've got to say with it because I'm tiptoeing around.
That's fine. You don't
Yeah.
need to state specifics. It would kind of be annoying if you did. What are we
Yeah.
moving on to, Pete? Okay, talk to me about them lovely, sexy space graphics, Peter.
Well, the graphics themselves are nice.
Yes.
The space graphics are good. There's a lovely skybox throughout the entire space station.
Yeah,
And
space.
space box, I guess it would
Yeah.
be. And that's really nicely done. The actual visuals themselves are crisp, solid,
Yeah.
nice, you know,
Tasty.
visually appealing in terms of on a graphical level. However, my issue is the design of the world.
Okay.
And the art style, I guess it's kind of inherent in the nature of being on a single structure floating in space, right? But my problem is that everything looks the same, largely.
Right.
It's slightly sort of Art Deco. It's one of the many BioShock comparisons you can make with
Right,
this.
it did look like that. Ornate stuff and the big funky font.
But you look at BioShock, and I found that BioShock, the landscape was actually pretty varied. Sometimes you'd be going through glass tubes, and there'd be like crazy neon lights, and sometimes you'd be in a, it would look like something pulled from Earth, like a shopping mall, and sometimes it'd be a hospital, and all this kind of crazy stuff. On Talos 1, you can explore, again, various environments, the medical bay, and there's an arboretum, which I thought, oh, this is going to be good. There's finally going to be some variation in trees and stuff.
Are they all dead?
Well, they're dead-ish or overgrown.
Okay.
But that aside, whether you're in the maintenance bay or the quarters, the living quarters, everything still kind of looks the same.
Right.
In BioShock, when you go to the medical pavilion, everything looks completely different, and it's cool. Yeah. So that's my biggest issue, is that the narrative is compelling enough, but walking around what is effectively the same tile set everywhere you go, more or less, it just left me kind of bored. I will say as well, the same can be said for the enemy design. Now, as I'm sure you've already seen if you've watched any coverage of this game, is that every single enemy is made up, they're called the Typhon, and they're all made up of black, shadowy, cloudy stuff.
Yes.
And although they have very different shapes and behavioural patterns and attacks,
Like humans.
they're still boring because they all just have literally the same makeup.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference between them, but it's like Thomas Was Alone.
Right.
They're all just cubes. They're all just shapes, which works in that game because it's a totally different kind of game.
And they have a story as
yeah,
well.
But
their little cubes.
yes, but that kind of lets me down.
Shadow beasts. Oh,
You got the same shadow beasts and the same corridors for 8 hours or whatever. And the last thing, the sound design, I will say, is, as I said in our first impressions, pretty good.
Yeah.
It's very unique. It all kind of ties together in an interesting way. There's this kind of sort of echoey, like tinniness to everything that happens, and it's like it gives the sound design its own unique quality, which you can't say for a lot of games. That like you could hear a sound from that game out of context and know, oh, that's Prey. So that's pretty good. First of all, I'll say that the Zero G is nicely done.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought the Dead Space Zero G was a little bit wink wonk.
Right, with the boots.
Yeah,
the
where you
booties.
sort of like jump and like dive in a line to, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I just rubbed the microphone.
Oh my god.
It's for art, though. What I just did.
Oh yeah, that was art.
It was art.
Definitely.
Yeah.
The Zero G is nicely done. It's got that proper kind of, like atmospheric. You go out into space and
it's
suddenly,
silent.
and it's like,
Oh, it's big.
Yeah, it's cool.
Big. Oh, it's big.
It's got exactly the kind of atmosphere that it should have, or lack of atmosphere, I suppose.
Talk to me about the guns, Pete.
The guns, there aren't that many.
Oh, okay.
I thought there were going to be a ton because when I opened the weapons wheel after about an hour or so of gameplay, there was space for loads of stuff, but it's actually just an items wheel to hotkey, like to favourite various things.
Gotcha.
There's a shotgun, there's a stun gun for human enemies, there's this big like zapper gun that's pretty cool. There's your wrench.
Yep. Your glue gun.
Your glue gun.
Which is used to solve Can you talk to me about some of the
Oh boy.
The free running, environmental, sexy, explory times?
I'll get there.
Okay.
But yeah, weapons, that is actually another slight issue, is I maybe would have liked a couple more weapons. It's not, because it's not true survival horror in the sense that like, oh, we're not going to give you very much to deal with these things. It's like they're telling you to shoot stuff, but they just don't give you a lot of variety there.
Right.
They need to kind of commit one way or the other, and I don't think they really did. So.
Right.
Glue gun and puzzling and so on.
Yeah.
Pretty nicely done.
You like that?
Now I will say that it's no Dishonored.
Okay.
It ain't no Dishonored, Arcane Studios, in terms of the way you can combine things and that sense of like, oh, I did that in a really clever way. You know, if you go on the YouTubes and look for some really clever combinations and tactics on Dishonored, people do some awesome creative stuff. This game, I don't think, gives you that kind of creative freedom. It feels more, despite the fact that it's a much more open environment on a global scale, it still feels a bit more funneled and linear. You feel like there are less ways to get into places.
Right.
There is, of course,
Swang.
a compass system that tells you where to go,
Okay, that's
which is
helpful.
fine, and a map. But
Does that help in terms of multiple floors? Because some maps can really screw you over. Dishonored, I believe, was one that had a problem with you have to go this way, and it's like, which floor? How do I get in?
yeah,
Where am I going?
I did have that issue where I'd be following this nav point, and I'd be like, oh, I'm nearly there, and then I'd get there, and it'd be like 20 feet away, and there's like a wall there, and it's down a bit, and
Yeah.
I'm like, what?
What? Huh? Why?
Excuse me? The glue gun, I feel, wasn't quite as smooth. Wasn't quite as smooth and fluid as I would like it to have been. It's a minor niggle. It works pretty well.
And you can climb walls and stuff with it. So
Overall, I'm impressed by the glue gun. I think it needed a bit of tweaking, and they may even yet patch it slightly to give it a bit of a.
Well, there's still time for Prey 2.
Prey 2.
Or Prey,
Prey
3.
3.
But if you want to get serious about this.
And sort of going back to the creative aspect of puzzling, the neuromods, I feel in particular, don't combine as well as you'd like with the glue gun and with.
So can you give me an example of some neuromod?
Okay, so there are sort of two branches of neuromods. There are ones that sort of affect your body in terms of like health and endurance and those kind of things, just sort of almost like
The
base
basic
traits.
ones,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then the separate branch is one where the neuromods are derived from the Typhon themselves. So that's where you're, allowed to have the mimic power and things like that. There are several that are just an offensive attack. They don't enter into puzzle solving very much.
Right,
so
it's
you
just
can just
hurt.
sort of fire or whatever, which is fine. But as far as puzzling goes, I mean, the mimic one is the most, you feel the most sort of savvy using that. You're like, oh, I did a clever thing there.
Okay, well, let's move on to 3 things you need to know.
Sounds good. Okay, number 1, right?
yeah.
Right. It's got good atmosphere, this game.
Okay.
For all for some of its flaws, it's got, the sound design, the kind of skittish, jumpy nature of these enemies. Not just the mimics, but like the other ones as well. Do a lot of jumping out and going like that. Oh, you alright?
You scared me a bit there.
Oh yeah. Did you guys get scared? Tell us in the comments below. And the kind of desolate. You're in this place that was once upon a time inhabited by loads and loads of people, and you see their bodies lying around everywhere you go, and seeing it just so empty, aside from walking shadow monsters, is tense.
It's a bit spooks.
Yeah, there's lots of spookums, and I think if nothing else, this game does that really well. The tension. Number 2, you might get a bit bored with this game.
Oh no.
It's got loads of good things going for it, right? And it seems like a real shame, but I think this is the game now where, like, I've never quite had a location let me down as much as this, sort of more than anything else. It's the corridors, the endless corridors with the same Art Deco design, gold trim, white floors.
Make the boys go.
Woo. It's not all bad, but you need to try and make an alternative source of enjoyment in this game. Is what I'm trying to.
Right, you've got to go into it with a motive for success.
Yeah,
because the game's not going to give you one. Is that it? Really?
Well, it'll give you. It will, but I guess this is what it is. I've had time to think about it on camera now, with dead air.
We all heard it.
Yeah, right. What it is people are comparing this game to BioShock, Prey, bit of Dead Space.
Right.
All of those 3 places.
I mean Dishonored.
I said Prey and I meant Dishonored. All have interesting locations, right?
Yes.
Now they've got other things going for them, and this game has other things going for it, but that is the one game out of the 5 that doesn't have an interesting location. And I think that's what it is. You're going in with this comparison in your mind.
And it doesn't quite live up to it.
So, number 2 thing that you need to know is that the game world does not live up to any of the other games that this is being compared to.
Okay.
The game world.
Gotcha.
And number 3, while it's no Dishonored, the creative freedom, the play how you... What do they say?
Play how you want.
Play how you want, play how you pray, is good. It's nicely done.
Yeah.
It's not top class, it's not top keck, but it is
It's near top.
It's near top. It's like medium high tech.
Yeah, okay.
There is a lot of
Okay.
wall climbing and hacking terminals and turning into mugs.
And using glue guns.
Using glue guns, becoming a flying turret and getting way up there that you
Yeah.
need to get to.
Butterfly in the sky.
Yes. You feel like a bit of a, kind of, not a genius, but you feel sneaky.
Renegade. A rogue.
That's not, you do feel like a rogue and a renegade.
A charming rogue.
What I was
going to
say is, you feel kind of clever when you get to a terminal and you're like, how am I going to get into this? And you look under the table and there's a post-it note stuck to the bottom of the desk. And that happens like every other terminal. There's somewhere in the room, there's
a little secret.
There's a little secret somewhere.
Well, there we go. Those are the 3 things you need to know. This has been our full review for Prey.
Or Prey 2.
Thank you, Simon Miller.
Thanks, Simon
I
Miller.
hope we get to do this Simon Miller impression again about Prey.
Or Prey 2.
Yeah. So hopefully there's more Prey.
Or Prey 2.
On the way.
On the way, or on the way too.
Thank you very much for watching. I've been Ben from What Culture.
I've been Peter from What Culture.
And we'll see you soon. Or soon too.